Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing one of the most impactful buffs in this new season of Go Battle League, and that is the rework of Parabolic Charge on Dedenne. Parabolic Charge is not only cheaper, it's less energy, but it has a guaranteed defense boost. This means that every 10 turns, Dedenne has a guaranteed ability to boost its defense. This can turn Dedenne after a few boosts into something that feels almost unkillable unless you have a resistance to electric. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and let's check out this newly buffed Dedenne. Hopping to the first match, picking up a great lead, Dedenne into Shadow Annihilape. This is a matchup that Dedenne can win straight Parabolic Charge in the 2-shield, so I'm just going to go straight for the Parabolic Charge. They're going to no-shield, bank the energy, safe switch into Shadow Drapion, and since I've buffed my defense, what's normally a somewhat glassy Dedenne is now pretty bulky. That Aqua Tail does nothing. I build up to the play rough, so I'm bluffing the harder hitting move, and now I will go for the Parabolic. They're going to shield due to my +2 defense. They cannot farm down. Dedenne, refusing to get KO'd, makes one final Parabolic. I still don't get farmed down. So I've forced both shields, I've landed a move on Annihilape, and now I just get to switch in the Lapras. This thing is crazy with the boosts. In comes Crunch after Crunch. I do get debuffed. Here, I'm just going to pick up the knockout with the Sparkling Aria. The thing I have to keep in mind is the Annihilape does have a move on it in the back. In comes Feraligatr, and it's the non-Shadow Feraligatr, which is bad for me. If it was the Shadow, I could just cap-tie them with a Rage Fist and knock them out, but I'm not sure if a Rage Fist will KO. So instead, I'm just going to farm up, switch into Dedenne, and get the game-winning catch. In hindsight, maybe a Rage Fist could have KO'd, but it's been a bit since I've played against the non-Shadow Feraligatr, so I wanted to be sure. And now I can just double up on the Rage Fist. Rage Fist number 1 is going to pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Annihilape, but this is now a +1 boosted Rage Fist. Down goes their Annihilape, and thanks to Dedenne forcing both shields on the lead, we're able to take the win. Bad lead in the next match, staring down a Stunfisk, so I'm going to save switch into Lapras. Lapras can do quite nicely into Unova Stunfisk because Discharge is a very bad move. Discharge lands, Lapras tanks that very comfortably, in comes a Shadow Annihilape, and I am going to be farming up and firing off the Sparkling Aria. This will do big damage if it lands, which it does, and my Lapras hangs on. We survived the counter. We were only 2 Psywaves away from the Aria, so I'm able to force a shield advantage, and now I can bring back in Dedenne. And if there's anything that Shadow Annihilape's going to want in the back, it's going to be a shield advantage. And let's give it a 1 counter head start as well. So now I'm up on energy. In the back is Gligar. So they're very strong into Dedenne, but they are very weak to Ice Punch Shadow Annihilape. So that's part of why I wanted to have Ice Punch Shadow Annihilape as the core pairing for the Dedenne. Obviously, it's a bit weak to Gligar if you see it, but in this instance, I'm seeing Gligar, but I'm up a shield thanks to the Lapras safe switch, and up a shield, this is very okay for the Annihilape. I'm going to throw 1 counter and fire off the Ice Punch. Ice Punch is double super effective. Gligar is not going to survive. And back in comes the Stunfisk. Stunfisk is able to outpace, but Mud Bomb will not be enough to knock out here. I will be able to hang on and now go for the Ice Punch. Now they're back on their 5 cycle. They have 1 residual, which means they're 4 off. I can switch into Dedenne. They're forced to throw instantly. And here I go for a bit of a devious play. I actually CMP tie with the Parabolic Charge. That's triple resisted, but I don't care about the damage. I want the defense boost, which means their Mud Bomb now doesn't knock me out. And now, they're on their 4 cycle. I can make it to another Parabolic Charge, and Dedenne is so devious. It looks like the opponent may have just force closed the app at this point. They were done with Dedenne shenanigans. It looks like there was actually a little bit of health remaining on that Stunfisk, as Stunfisk survives the triple resisted Parabolic Charge, but the 0 bubbled Mud Bomb allows me to Thundershock down and take the win. We move to the next game, Dedenne into Galarian Weezing. This is obviously a very bad lead, and it's a core breaker because Weezing's going to do great into the Annihilape. Now, if I no-shield a Sludge, that will do a ton of damage, but if I can get my defense up to +2, then a Sludge won't even do half. So I'm more than happy just to double shield Sludges here and look to continue to boost up my attack. But they actually go for an Overheat, and they stay in. So are they not running Sludge? Are they Overheat Brutal Swing? They cap tie. This can only be a Brutal Swing. The moveset choice really costing my opponent here. Brutal Swing, not going to do anything to the +2 Dedenne. And let's fire off a third Parabolic before they get their -2 overheat. So Parabolic picks up the KO, and now in comes Dachsbun. These charms are doing nothing to the +3 Dedenne. Let's make it a +4 Dedenne. Let's make this Dedenne basically unkillable. Charm has never looked so pathetic. Here I shield Psychic Fangs. I didn't have to shield the Psychic Fangs, but I was pretty sure if I shielded it that I could get 2 more Parabolics and just basically fully 1v2 with the Dedenne. And thanks to the shield, I do get another Parabolic. Defense boost caps out at 4, so this won't increase my defense anymore, but +4 Dedenne put in so much work, and now we see why they couldn't switch. They had Greninja in the back, so I send in Annihilape, and I make the game-winning catch of the Hydro Cannon onto Lapras. I could have just sent in the Lapras because Lapras wins zeros against Greninja, but I felt like getting 3 Shadow counters would speed up the process considerably, as now they will go for the Night Slash, and the opponent will resign, but Dedenne just ran away with that game. We move to the next match. Bit of a tough lead here. Dedenne staring down Shadow Scizor. Scizor bullet punches add up quite substantially. Here, I'm just going to go straight for the Parabolic Charge as soon as I get it and buff up my defense. That makes these bullet punches a lot less threatening. My opponent will have to Trailblaze if they want the knockout. I'm going to call Night Slash, but they do end up going for the Trailblaze. In comes Annihilape. They're going to pivot now into Dragalge, and I have a great response for Acid Dragalge with my Lapras. Acid is now a Shadow Claw clone, which means that Dragalge is quite spammy. They are already able to make it to an Outrage. I'm farming up, and here they end up just going for the Aqua Tail. They don't commit to the Outrage. This gets them a little bit of chip damage, but now I can punish the fact that they threw the small move by going for an Undercharge on the Aria. I can Psywave down and exit with a bunch of residual energy. In comes Scizor, and Scizor will immediately be put under pressure by the Sparkling Aria. I switch to Annihilape, counter goes through as they undertap the Night Slash, and Night Slash is going to force my shield as Shadow Scizor hits way too hard. In the back, it's Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz, obviously, going to be hitting for super effective damage with Aerial Ace, but since they made an interesting choice to run Snarl, they basically have no fast move pressure here. My Shadow Annihilape will get rocked by the Aerial Ace, but I can barely hang on, surviving that Snarl to make another Ice Punch, and my clock should be up now. I can switch into the Lapras, and the overfarm that I did earlier against Dragalge wins me this game, as I outpace Scizor, KO with the Aria, and take the win. We move to the next match. The weather just changed as well. Dedenne into Blastoise. Opponent safe switches into a Dusclops. I bank energy, and I go Lapras. Dusclops' lack of damage is the thing that really holds it back in a lot of scenarios. So if you send in a bulky mon like Lapras, like look at that. The Shadow Punch just does absolutely nothing, whereas the Psywaves do add up considerably. They can go for Shadow Punch after Shadow Punch. That's very okay. Now here, I believe I do make a bit of a misplay. I should really let them fire off the next Shadow Punch, because then I would be a lot lower. But by not doing so, they can now get an insane farm down with Blastoise. I can't let that happen. So I'm going to aggressively pivot into the Shadow Annihilape. I don't want to throw energy until my Rage Fist will KO, because obviously my opponent has the ability to switch. So I just stay in and I keep farming. Now, after a few more counters, Rage Fist will actually knock out. They're going to pivot out into an Astonished Dusknoir. They probably should have switched in the Dusknoir instantly, but the threat of that energy always being held is what kind of kept them on the field with the Blastoise, hoping that I would throw. But now they're in trouble because I can send in the Lapras. Lapras, they actually don't throw, and that lets me get the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is going to do some pretty nice damage. Opponent gets a farm down, but I can counter down before the Astonish down, so I just send in the Annihilape. Annihilape forces their energy, and now Dedenne is just strictly winning. I send in Dedenne. The opponent is done with Dedenne's nonsense, as were many opponents, and they're just gonna stop tapping. I really like Dedenne's ability to boost. If you don't have electric resist, it just makes life very, very uncomfortable. We move to the next match. Dedenne into Corviknight. This is a great lead for Dedenne. Corviknight staying in, which is a huge shock. Dedenne has a big pacing advantage, so I get to the Parabolic Charge before they get to their Iron Head. That rocks the Corviknight, and now I'm boosted, which means their Iron Head, I'm going to tank a lot better. The one thing I'm unsure of is if I can farm down as the Dedenne here. I didn't want to risk it, so I threw the energy. I'll have to play the matchup back in the future to see if I can actually farm down there, but either way, I exit with +2 defense. They send in Golisopod. And their Fury Cutters are only going to be doing 1 damage here because I'm +2 defense. Now I'm +3 defense. So they're never going to be able to farm me down. So not only do they lose quite a bit of health on the Galarian and a shield, but they're forced to throw energy. This is why at times Dedenne almost feels unkillable in neutral matchups, because once it gets a couple boosts going, it goes from a mon that is normally very glassy to a mon that suddenly is extremely bulky. In the back is going to be Blastoise. I send in Annihilape, and Annihilape's going to do very nicely here. I do survive a Hydro Cannon, but I would definitely prefer to just keep the Annihilape as healthy as I possibly can. Here, I will go for an undercharge on the Rage Fist because I want to exit with a Rage Fist loaded. A boosted Rage Fist is going to be able to force a shield from the Galarian, and then I can just clean up the game with Lapras. So thanks to the undercharge, I exit with the move loaded. They're forced to shield this. It's going to do more than a move from the Lapras, but they're low enough that even an Ice Beam that's resisted is going to almost knock them out. Ice Beam is going to land, we get the Psy Wave down, and we're able to take the win. This team performed unbelievably well for me. Dedenne into Dedenne. Now this is a weakness of the team. This team, obviously the Pokemon in the back are weak to Dedenne. I farm up to the play rough, my opponent having the higher attack, Dedenne gets to go first. In the mirror, I imagine people are basically just always going to go straight Parabolic at first, and then they can go for the play roughs. So Parabolic is going to land, I'm going to build up, and here I will make a misplay. Here I should just go for the play rough, because I can actually survive this due to my +1 defense and guarantee either a shield or some nice damage. But instead, I go for a second Parabolic, they no shield, and now I'm in trouble. I send in the Lapras, but they have way more health than they would have if I had clicked play rough. So a bit of a misplay by me. That was the first time playing out the Dedenne mirror. In comes Galarian Moltres. I'm going to farm up just shy of 100 energy and unleash Ice Beam. Ice Beam into the Moltres is going to pressure a shield. Moltres over farming, and that does actually let me get to another Ice Beam. This is really, really nice. That's going to get my opponent very, very low. They are going to fire off energy. They have to Brave Bird here. Fly will not KO. They go for the Fly. I can switch out into Annihilape, and Annihilape is going to get that counter down. So I'm up 2 counters. What is in the back? It's Talonflame. And Talonflame is something that honestly does not want to see Shadow Annihilape. Shadow Annihilape is going to go for the Rage Fist. That does big damage. Opponent going to switch into Dedenne. That gets countered down as well. They send in the Talonflame. They 1-turn lag, so it's a simul KO, but I still had fast move pressure available on Lapras and Dedenne, so it would have been a win regardless. This match is the greatest example of how to throw a game. In this match, great lead, they save switch into Clodsire, but I throw 2 Thundershocks before switching instead of 1. This is the play that loses me the game. I need to switch after throwing 1 Thundershock because then my Lapras gets 2 Arias before my opponent gets to 2 Stone Edges. But by going for a very slow swap, I am now forced to concede shield advantage. And this puts me in an absolutely terrible position from which I basically cannot recover. Because giving up a shield is a huge problem when my energy that I gain as a result of giving up that shield goes nowhere into the Jellicent. I can't afford to pivot out, I'm just forced to stay in with the Lapras, and they are going to get so much energy on this Jellicent. So right off the bat, I've basically already lost this game. I will make an Aria and an Ice Beam, but neither move plus the Psywaves will be enough to threaten a KO. They have so much energy on the Jellicent. I shield up Dedenne, but at this point, realistically, down 2 shields. Shadow Annihilape is not winning in back. It's going to be a Shadow Scizor, and this game is over. This is a game that this team should never lose, because the moment you see the switch into the Clodsire, you should instantly respond with the Lapras, and you would be fine. Here, they end up getting the Night Slash boost with Scizor, but watching it back, where I lost this game was in switching too slow into the Lapras, as that just set me up for failure. Hopping into the final match, Dedenne staring down at Diggersby. Now this is my one worry about Dedenne. Dedenne is terrifyingly strong in neutral matchups, but against a ground type or against a grass, basically Pokemon that can resist electric, Dedenne is going to struggle because obviously it's very reliant on boosting up its defense. So if it ends up being a very ground heavy meta, then things could get uncomfortable. In this instance, my opponent definitely should have shielded the first Aria that I threw, because now they're shielding when their defense is boosted, and that's typically when you want to absorb hits. I get to send in my own Dedenne, and I'm more than happy just to use it as a damage sponge, because obviously I know there is going to be a Diggersby awaiting me. I'm just going to go for the Parabolic Charge. I just need their Dedenne gone, and then I have Shadow Annihilape up a shield. So now I get to send in Shadow Annihilape into the Diggersby. Diggersby staying in, and they're firing off energy here. They are fishing for a potential Scorching Sands debuff. Will they get it? 30% chance. They do get it, and it's Fury Cutter Golisopod in the back. Fury Cutter obviously going to be very heavily resisted here by Annihilape. And the one thing that benefits me is the fact that they have desynced the switch timer by staying in to throw the sands to get the debuff. Because now, I'll be able to switch before they can switch. So I get to fire off the Rage Fist, force the shield, I can farm up quite a bit, switch, and their clock is not up, so they have no choice but to throw the move. Aqua Jet is going to pick up the knockout, but I can send back in Annihilape. They send in the Diggersby, but I have loaded energy. I get to fire off the Ice Punch. Ice Punch into the Diggersby. Big damage. Diggersby gets countered down. All that's left is Golisopod. Golisopod gets countered down as well, and that is a good game. I had really good results with this team. I know obviously it's day one, and we'll have to see how the meta adjusts and adapts from here, but this team did feel very, very good. I think potentially some Pokemon that could be uncomfortable for this team are Acid Credilli could definitely be one, as obviously Acid hits Dedenne for super effective damage. Rock Tomb hits Lapras for super effective damage, and on top of that, it has an electric resist. Something like a Claydol, as Claydol is obviously pretty strong into Annihilape, so it more so breaks the Dedenne Annihilape core. And a Gligar, we'll have to see how common Gligar does end up being. Obviously, there's so much up in the air right now, but being able to boost your defense every 10 turns is absolutely crazy. I don't think anyone has ever spoken at length about the glorious stats that Dedenne has in Pokemon Go, because its stats are fairly middling, specifically its defense being its worst stat. Dedenne has always had pretty good HP. Its HP is actually its highest stat by far. So the fact that it's, by these Parabolic Charge boosts, able to fix its worst stat, and suddenly, after a few buffs, turn it into its best stat, suddenly you go from a Pokemon that has like okay bulk to a Pokemon that can feel almost unkillable at times. So I think obviously getting more comfortable with when to shield, when to overfarm, when to just go straight Parabolic Charge. It's going to take some time to get comfortable with this mon, but it felt like a standout on day one. This Pokemon's ability to boost up its defense, I think, makes it stronger than Morpeko ever was in the Go Battle League, because Morpeko, you could always kind of fast move it down, or you could energy management your way to success. But if Dedenne ends up getting boosted up with its defense, even if you stored a bunch of energy, that energy is not going to go very far. So realistically, I think the way to beat Dedenne neutrally is to try and get an energy advantage before it gets boosted up, because obviously it really wants to be able to shield the first move and boost up, or in some scenarios, like against Shadow Annihilape, if you have a good Dedenne, it doesn't even have to shield the first Rage Fist. You can let the first Rage Fist go and still end up just winning straight Parabolic, because obviously your Parabolic Charge outpaces their Rage Fist. So I'm a big fan, day number one. We'll see how the meta shakes out. Obviously, if it's a very ground-heavy meta, then Dedenne may not be here to stay. But in these early days, Dedenne is sweeping teams. Like, I obviously have been watching a lot of other people play, and it seems like Dedenne is a really big winner from day one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.